Do you feel emotionally connected to your plants? As if in the process of caring for them, they as well are caring for you? What about planty DIYs and thrifting for plant items? If I have your attention, then the Plants by Wade Lee podcast is for you. Join me, plant friends, as we dig deep and experience the magic of plants. Welcome, everyone, to the fourth season of the Plants by Wade Lee podcast. I'm super excited to have a friend who I've met on this plant journey in real life, which is so awesome. You know her as Black in the Garden, but I know her as Colah Tawkin. Thank you so much for being here. We are finally have had our worlds collide to be able to do this. You are a very busy woman, which is, I'm super excited to talk about some of the things that you have going on in Atlanta. You're in Atlanta. So welcome, my love. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, Wade. Wow. Thank you. Birthday again. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me on.
You're so cute. Tell me a little bit about what drew you to plants. Let's start there. How did your love of plants germinate in your life?
I feel like it was always like an appreciation even before I was engaged with plants. And so by the time I was an adult and I was getting more concerned about knowing where my food is coming from, that's when I decided to start trying to figure out like how to grow my own food. And when I finally got a bit of confidence around like germinating seeds, that really made a difference for me as far as like making me that much more interested. And then there was also propagation. When I started figuring out how to propagate certain plants, I was like, I'm really growing stuff. And it's something about seeing stuff grow at a more rapid pace. That's what really locked me in with plants. And also recognizing that it's such a wide world of information that if all you talk about is plants and the things that are related to them, such as like, all of the organisms in the ecosystem and all of the different types of plants that there are, you always have something to talk about, something to research, something to learn more about. And so there's endless points to stimulate my interest.
And it's both a love of garden as well as houseplants.
Yes. Whatever I can grow, I'm gonna grow. I like growing mushrooms, like microgreens, sprouting stuff, doing the crafts like the kokedama, using botanical elements to create art installations. I want to do all of it. So my interest is ever expanding.
That's amazing. Right now, you have an outside garden.
Currently, as we are recording this in winter, I am focusing on my house plants. And I've been a pretty hands-off kind of plant parent in this season, but over the summer, I grew a summer and spring, I grew a coleus garden, and that was really special because that was something I had been needing to do for a long time. And so I grew a coleus garden and I had 3 raised garden beds. Well, I focus a lot on melons. This growing season, rather than trying to grow a whole bunch of stuff, I did grow some tomatoes and some eggplant and some cucumber and some herbs. So, she was doing stuff, and I grew some sunflowers, 2 different types.
Yeah.
But that was one part of the garden, and it was very messy. And so when I grew my coleus and canna lilies, the foliage was just so beautiful. I was inspired by like every beautiful botanical garden that I've ever been to, and I wanted it to be an aesthetic garden. So I wanted to serve 2 different purposes. I wanted to use the earth as a canvas and to use the earth as like a bank that I could deposit seeds and care into. And what happens after you deposit? Withdraw harvest.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and I think it's cool too that you kind of shied away with saying, "Oh, you know, I'm taking a step back of the garden for a little bit," and it's okay. As a gardener, it's okay to let the soil sit a little bit and let whatever the earth is going to do to give it more nutrients. I think it's okay to tell yourselves that it's okay. I was telling someone the other day about my garden that, oh, you must have this amazing garden. And
Yeah,
I
tell
said,
me about it.
I had a huge pest problem with these little lubers. You lived in Jacksonville, like we have these grasshoppers that have this yellow line and they will destroy everything. And I
They
had this
ate
beautiful,
yeah.
they'll eat anything. It was so beautiful. And then, like, within a month, it was all eaten up. And I just washed my hands
Those
and I was
things
like, yeah,
are
oh
rude.
my God, they are so
I
rude.
remember when I was last in Jacksonville, they ate a whole palm, and I was just like, "How y'all eat my palm?" I took it outside so it could try to, like it was struggling in the house, so I took it outside thinking, palm trees should
Yeah.
be outside in Florida anyway, and them things came through and just slowly ate it up, but they was eating
Mhm.
all the other stuff in the yard, and they were very obnoxious. They were harmless, but they were obnoxious.
Yeah, palladiums are like the only thing I've not had them eat in my garden, but palladiums are very toxic. They're a very toxic plant, so that's probably why. But
I love
yeah,
caladiums, by the way.
yeah, I think I just want to do a complete like caladium garden with the rest of the tropical things that are still alive. We had a big freeze a couple of nights ago. My banana tree looks a little, but last year I did the same thing. I cut it down and it grew. But and let's like segue to that. You
Yeah.
some history, some time here in Jacksonville as well for all of
Yes.
our listeners. Many might even know you.
Mhm.
You were part of the Jacksonville scene, so let's talk a little bit about that.
So I was from 3rd grade to college, I was raised in Jacksonville. So I spent a lot of my formative years there. So I like to say Duval raised me for real because, like, it's definitely part of shaping my worldview and the way that I talk and the way that, I can really adapt to a lot of different types of environments. And so as an adult, I did not live there as much. It just didn't feel like it was really calling me or holding me rather to, like, stay in Jacksonville. And
Mhm.
so most recently or not most recently, at one point in time when it was around 2016 when I was living in Jacksonville, that's when I started gardening. So it was definitely, there that the soil that where I really first connected with the soil, if you will. So there's a lot of, history there, and I've, done some really cool things around town and work with some amazing people in Jacksonville that are all a part of this whole
Yeah,
interest between houseplants and gardening, and they're amazing people doing amazing things in the community.
growing like farmers in
Mhm.
Jacksonville. That it's super cool because that's where I had I'd known of you from the podcast and Instagram in Atlanta, but then I saw your connections with all of these local farmers because obviously this is my home. So I've been trying to integrate my life with some home growers and farmers here, and your name kept popping up, and I was like, wow, this is so cool. So it's really cool that Duval raised you. So awesome. How has that transferred to like what you do as a speaker? And I've seen that you've been on TED Talk, TEDx, correct?
Mhm. TEDx
Um,
Jacksonville, yeah.
yeah, that's so cool. So how has that really formed the movement that you're doing right now in Atlanta?
Learned I learn a lot everywhere I go. We haven't talked about the trucking era of my life. And so, I've been a lot of places around the country and Jacksonville, and just getting to know the landscape of people, not just like the physical landscape, but in seeing what everyone's doing and having a desire to connect. I always want to connect. I was able to do that pretty well and meet with some of the people in Jacksonville. I don't want to name no names because I don't like leaving people out. People who are involved in everything from urban agriculture to storytelling and preservation. I've had some of them on my podcast. They've driven up um, from Jacksonville to Atlanta. So I definitely have to shout out. I lied. I definitely have to shout out Trey Ford, Ina Michelle Mall. As far as Jacksonville preservationists who have come to be on the podcast, connecting with them in Jacksonville and just learning more about how to be more collaborative in a community of like-minded people when I transferred back to Atlanta to get more involved with producing the podcast at a different level, then just recognizing the connections that I had already made. That's the thing about like entrepreneurship and especially with podcasting, you just meet so many people and then it's like every person that you know is like a network unto themselves. And so, and having the interest to connect people and to educate people. And while doing that connecting, I realized gardening is an interest that typically is associated with community building. So, in having success in Jacksonville, building community and meeting people and telling my story and having people resonate, doing that in Atlanta, just pulling from a similar um, pulling from a similar skill set.
It's very important for this industry to have the representation of you and so many other amazing Black people who have the love for gardening and planting.
We are shedding light on the parts of history that in mainstream media have been ignored too much. And so, we have a very powerful and very well connected network of other soil cousins, is what I call us. Plant enthusiasts, people who have been connecting, not just in the digital space, but also connecting in person at all these really cool events that are happening all over the place. So, that is something that has been it's been a big blessing to be able to connect in the ways that we have, because of course that's how you and I got to
Right.
be able to have this conversation.
Yeah. It was awesome. We met eating. I think there's something really special about sitting down with someone and eating with them. And so I I feel you as a friend for real. That day was really cool for me. And to see Derek and just all of these people
Yes.
who I love online and have had also on the podcast.
Into real life so easily.
Yeah, exactly. What draws you to education, not just being in the plant space, but also educating people?
What draws me to it is knowing that I have a skill that allows me to assess information that I find to be relevant, that may be kind of obscure. Maybe the interest point that can get people to pay attention to it is obscured, or maybe it's a complex idea that it's not that people couldn't understand, but it's just that they wouldn't care about the idea or the concept as it is without adding a little something to it. Um, being a storyteller naturally, just by growing up in a household where I was around someone who was always, telling these really interesting stories about things that they had witnessed and teaching and sharing lessons and wisdom in that way. What draws me to educating or education, you use them interchangeably, is the ability to tell stories and use the stories and, like distill the information or translate the information into content in diverse ways that allows people to connect with it. So
I
when I
love that.
recognized that Black people did not have a media platform that was speaking in a language that could resonate, it was very important for me to say, I'm going to go ahead and start doing that.
And how long have you
It's been since 2019, a little bit over 6 years.
wow,
Um, yeah, we put a lot of episodes out.
pre-COVID?
Yes.
Yeah, which is amazing because a lot of people got into the space during COVID, but pre-COVID, that's so cool. And what were you listening to like what made you think I have something to say? I think people will
Yeah.
tune into this. What was that like for you?
I was listening to podcasts since like 2012 for sure, maybe 11. I was listening to my favorite shows that were hosted by Black people. Typically, it would be like companion hosts. And so they were actually either very much women centric or very much queer centric. So it was The Read. I remember listening to Another Round, Two Dope Queens, things like that were hosted by Black hosts. But then when I started gardening, which was after I was listening to podcasts, I was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, where's the gardening podcast? I can still do the things that I like to do. Now I have this new thing, gardening. And so I should listen to the podcast while I'm doing it." And I listened to some. I listened to what was formerly known as Bloom and Grow Radio. I listened to Maria. I listened to Epic Gardening, and I was just like, okay, this is really cool. This is like, definitely for my generation.
Yeah.
But as I mentioned, and I tell people all the time in my story, I was looking for educational gardening content that was like culturally specific to the experience that I was having or wanted to have in the garden. But yeah, I really enjoyed those shows, and starting before what I call the plant-demic. I feel like it gives me like an extra badge because it's like not a badge, not that I need to have a badge, but it gives me like an extra level of authenticity because I was interested in it before it became something that, the
Was
culture
trendy.
shifted. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I said that was the first thing I said to you. I was like, oh, pre-pandemic, there is something to be said. So don't belittle that because you're right. It does maybe growing joy with plants with Maria very much influenced me to do this. But I love this space. I love having these conversations. Oh my love, let's discuss your trucking journey and adventure in life. You were a trucker and I find it fascinating. That's why I love doing this podcast because you learn the most interesting things. And if you just share a little bit about how that happened for you.
Yeah, I was a sophomore in college, and I was trying to figure out, how I was gonna go to the next year. And then I was looking for employment and I found trucking to be appealing. So I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I went for it. And that was how I left college. And I just thought it was gonna be such a fun adventure. And it kind of was, being so young, getting started. But as I got to later stages in life, I came to realize that it wasn't really the best thing for me to do. But I could also credit that experience with two significant things. Give me the space to be able to do a job while also being able to tap into like a deeper part of like my reasoning and thinking brain. Because we just have so much time to think and like have these very clear thoughts and really process stuff. So that's one thing. And then I got to listen to a lot of podcasts, and it really helped me to understand how good podcasts sound when they are put together in a very thoughtful way, and the conversations are
Yeah.
good, the different aspects from a consumer's point of view of what I enjoyed about a good podcast. And it helped me to know when I felt like I wanted to do one for myself, what I would be listening for and intentional about in order to make mine be something people would enjoy.
It's amazing. And then you also saw so much of the country, correct?
I did. And there was a connection that I didn't make at that time that I was doing that I've had a realization since then about how landscapes tell stories. And I think that that's why I enjoyed that aspect of it so much because I like to start at point A, and as I go further and further down the rabbit hole or on the journey, I like to see where the road leads. And I
Yeah.
mean that figuratively, literally.
Yeah. So you've been listening to podcasts for a long time.
Mhm. It's been, oh my goodness, it's been at least like 13 years by now. My favorite
Wow.
show is The Read, and I've been listening to them for, I want to say about 13 years. Yeah, because I know that their anniversary coincides with one of my children's age.
I love that. And you are in Atlanta, and I see you being so involved with the plant community there. What kind of events and activities are you doing at Atlanta with the plant people there?
Wow, I'm doing as much as I can because I really like what happens when we get people together in a room to talk about the plants, talk about our experience, talk about all of the different aspects culturally that are connected. So I also like to find interesting ways for us to, I don't know, be stimulated or to like participate, like a game type of thing, like a trivia type of moment. I recently, well, not recently, but a few months ago, in correspondence with an episode from Black the Garden, I did a event called Single Plant Parents. And I was really proud of that event because the concept came from a podcast episode. So it was a really fun moment to come together in a plant shop and get some single people together and encourage them to not just find romantic ways to connect, but find ways to connect as friends. I love doing
Yeah.
that because I love to provide those kind of spaces.
Yeah.
APGA, which is the American Public Gardens Association, and That was important for me to be involved with that organization, with it being such a, first of all, with it being a national organization that represents one aspect of the horticulture industry. And for me, coming into the horticultural space as one who is focusing on the cultural aspect, diversity is very important to me. And I know that there was not enough diversity in that organization or in just horticulture in general, especially in the United States. Me recognizing the need to participate in it was why I'm just connecting those dots. But I first went to their conference, I want to say in 2022, and I spoke on a panel for the IDEA committee. And I've been participating in the IDEA committee for, I'm going to say, it was going by so fast because it's already 26,
Right.
at least years that I've been a part of that committee.
That's incredible. Yeah, I love APGA. I'm actually going to lead a panel this summer at the San Francisco conference, which is very, very cool with Roundwood. And thank you. Who else? Morton and as well as Red Butte. So super excited to do that. This will be my first time. I became a member with the Kummer Museum of Art and Gardens because of them, automatically became a member, which was very, very cool. So I've been taking a lot of the sessions. Actually, I have one tomorrow for learning how to not get hurt in the gardens. So as a gardener, and then also for volunteers and then people coming into the gardens, how to keep the garden a safe space, which should be fun. I've really enjoyed the sessions that I
That's
already taken, but I did see that you had a relationship with them, so I definitely wanted to ask you about that. So that's so cool. And then I've also
yeah.
seen you
Nobody,
involved.
I said, nobody ever asked me about that aspect of what I do because I do a lot.
I mean, it's a huge organization, and to be picked to sit on a panel like you have is a really big deal. So I definitely wanted to, ask you about that. But also like uh, more grassroots.
Well, I've had a relationship with Campbell, the owner of that business, for a while. I think it was like 2020, maybe 21 when I first met her. And that was before Seed Atlanta had a brick and mortar location. And so some time had gone by while everybody was just doing the things that they were doing and continuing to grow their businesses, or just thinking about plant people who I was initially engaging with around 2019 and 2020. But a lot of people went on to do different things. And what Campbell went on to do was continue with Seed Atlanta and make it a brick and mortar shop, and then really build a great community around the business. So when she has her plantini events, she has repotting. And I love participating in that. I've had her on the podcast. So it is something that, I like to have like kind of layers to the things that I participate in because they have different points of meaning for me.
Yeah, of course. And
Uh-huh.
there's a big plant community in Atlanta. So there's lots to do. And then there's also the Atlanta Botanical Gardens, which is absolutely beautiful.
Yes.
Do you get to spend some time there?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm glad you asked about Atlanta Botanical Garden because that is the institution that I have the most history with. As far back as I believe it was 2018, I used to volunteer with them. And there was a moment when I was volunteering with them where they were preparing for their Alice in Wonderland exhibit. Have you seen that?
I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah.
Because now is it a fixture in their gardens now, or is it
Some of the
or I saw
pieces,
that it's
yes.
just pink, but it's beautiful.
It's an exhibit that is on such a massive scale that they don't just bring it in one day and just pop it in. It takes so much because there's so many tiny pieces. There's so many plants, like thousands of plants that are part of all the sculptures combined. And so I remember they said to the volunteers to the greenhouse that was like 40 miles away from Atlanta. I don't remember the name of the greenhouse, but they invited the volunteers to come out and observe these exhibits as they were being planted while they were getting ready to bring them to the garden. And I remember
Wow.
going crazy with making videos and stuff. And I can't really remember where these videos are. I know I have them somewhere. But when I look back at those videos and I saw what I was doing, I was like, this is what I want to do. I
Yeah,
like reporting on this type of stuff. So there has to be like a media pocket for that. And that was maybe like 2.5 years before I ended up starting Black in the Garden.
that's
So that's
amazing.
my special with Atlanta Botanical Garden. And then about 2 years after I started the show, they became the first major sponsor. So we go all the way back for real.
That's so awesome. And they're bringing that back. Like, or did it leave or it's coming back? I saw that they're having like a reopening of
Yeah.
Alice in Wonderland. Yeah,
So I know sometimes we
so
see a
cool.
lot of information and it can be hard to keep track with what's happened, what's happening, and what's about to happen. So I know they
Right.
initially had it when I was there volunteering and I got to experience it in that version. Then they brought it back like last year. I want to say 2025-ish. And I think
Okay.
it's traveling to other gardens, but I don't know if they're bringing it back. But we do know that some of the fixtures.
I saw it in 2020, literally like the week or the world was, filled with COVID, like literally the week before. And I was just amazed. And it was cold. It was, that first week of March, February. And I love the goddess sculpture, the water
Yeah.
feature. She wasn't in bloom, but I definitely need to get to the Atlanta Botanical Gardens while she's in bloom. That's got to be
Yes,
magnificent to
come with
see.
me.
Yes, I will. I'll be back for the Southeast Plant Show, so we should definitely link
Plan
up
for
then
that.
because that would be amazing to see. What other
I agree.
do you have any connections with? I know that we had talked earlier about education, but what about education with children and having children experience gardens? Do you have any workshops or any teachings that you do on that aspect?
I'm glad that you asked this because I go in a few different directions with that, and I'm gonna bullet point them and then I'm gonna expand a little bit. So I have the Black in the Garden coloring experience, which is a great resource for kids to see themselves in those pages and color themselves in that way. I also am involved with See Your Future, which is a nonprofit that is a part of the APGA. And I also go to career fairs as often as possible at the elementary to high school level. And what's another thing? I want to do some summer camps or some like spring camps for the kids.
Yeah.
So that's something that is upcoming.
That's awesome. Talking about things upcoming, is
Yeah.
there anything that you could share that you have in the works or that you're excited about that will be rolling out in 2026?
Ooh, you know where I'm at with it. I'm focusing on scaling, but I had to also evaluate what scaling reasonably means for me in this season. So the way that it looks is not doing new stuff as much as getting better at the things that I had already been doing. So to answer your question with that in mind, what I'm doing in 2026 is improving on the things that I already have and getting more consistent.
And you have a website where everyone can find all of the information and the things that you do because you do speaking engagements and the podcast. And I'm glad that you mentioned like you are an author, you have this coloring book.
That you call me an author because I'm like, well, coloring books, they don't have like text in them like that, but I'll receive it because, might as well come out with a book, right? So
Yeah,
the website
there's going
is
to be a second layer to that.
absolutely, and that is something that is in development as we speak. So, the things are coming up, but I want to be specific about the things that are coming out when I have enough together to say what it is. But as far as the website is blkinthegarden.com. BLK in the Garden is where more of the podcast will live besides just the audio. So I'm excited about expanding the website and the store is there. So you can support if you want to buy some of the merch and you get the coloring experience there and find out about all the things that are going on.
Yeah. Who has been your most captivating person that you've interviewed for the podcast?
Ooh. See, when I answer that question, I don't want to say anybody over the next person. I've talked to some really interesting people. I talked to some authors. I talked to Ananda Lewis years before she passed. I can't believe she passed away in 2025. He's the only guest that I've had who is no longer with us. So that was a very weird precedent to set. I talked to Plant Queen. Have you had Plant Queen on the show?
I have not, but we've spoke about doing something. But yes, I definitely am in the works of
Yes,
that.
but yeah, so a lot of our favorites, people from like the online plant space, but also people like a Black executive from a landscaping company, just to get like that different perspective on the industry, from where they come from, because they're looking at things so differently. I've talked to an entomologist who also ate bugs, and that was a really fun episode. Scientists, farmers, theists. I like to get a very diverse range of the type of people who I'm engaging with. And as I'm thinking about new things to explore and wanting to talk to people outside of the plant space to show the connection between plants and other industries.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, and the reason why I asked too is because same, like I wanted Plants by Wadley to just be a conversation about people who love plants in the industry. And so farming is plants. And I had such an amazing
Yeah.
time to reconnect with one of my very good friends from high school, but we hadn't seen or spoken to each other in years. But she is a farmer in Wisconsin, which is crazy because we were like gothic kids and like and we grew up with farms all around us, and I could never imagine her being a farmer. And I just love that she's in that space. And that was just such a special episode for me way in the beginning, in season one.
To say that, especially with emphasizing the guest selection of guests who don't have to have a big name, whether it be online or in any other kind of way, because
Yeah.
it really speaks to like the journalistic approach that I've always taken to the show. And I'm very proud by now to be able to, when I speak about my career, I am able to bill myself as an audio journalist. And that comes from recognizing that like there's so many perspectives to this place where I'm coming from, which is coming from what I call the Black botanical lens. So talking to people who can
Okay.
give me a deeper, more dynamic understanding of what we're talking about. I don't care where you're coming from or who's already interested in what you're saying. The conversation that we have will pull more people in just being interested
Yeah.
in what we're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to repeat that again because I talked over you. So sorry. But like you said, Black Botanical Lens, which is
Yes.
so it's like yes, that's such a powerful lens to be looking through, and I love that, and I love that you hold that space for the Black community. And with that, where can everyone find you? We talked about your website, but on social media, could you share your handles?
Yes. Okay. So where do I be at? And think I'm most active on Instagram for now, which is that handle is at Black in the Garden. And that's where I'm most likely to post a story or anything that is announcing something outside of the website, of course. And there's what is there? TikTok. I can't remember the handle on there, but it's not that different from Black in the Garden. You'll know it's me when you see it. There's not people trying to fake me at this point. And LinkedIn at Colah Tawkin, but I know you
Yeah,
can find the Black in the Garden page on there. So Black is on all the platforms, but just double check and make sure it's me. You'll know it's me.
yeah. Awesome. And then on the website, you can get all the links to the podcast, but you can also tune into the podcast wherever you listen, and tune into your favorite podcast.
Yes,
Black in the
I
Garden
would love.
is the title
Yes,
of the podcast.
that's the title of the podcast, and I thank you so much, Wade, for bringing me on your show.
It was a very important for me going into season 4 to have you on as the first guest of season 4. I'm super excited going into season 4. There's going to be some really, really captivating conversations about the
So
garden space and plants. So keep tuning in, and thank you so much, my love. Also, tune in to Colah's podcast, Black in the Garden. And until next time, bye bye.
love, light, and
Awesome.
soil.